Ohio State Mood Tracker. We are headed to Columbus, Ohio tonight. Now, if you're an Ohio State Buckeye fan out there, it's very fun to play along. Or maybe you just watch Ohio State, but you're not an Ohio State fan. What would you think the fan base's mood is in and around Columbus, Ohio right now? Because I got all kinds of different reactions to this. Normally, when I ask a fan base, I'll either have a consensus or I'll have very, very split reactions, but it'll be like 2 reactions. I got like 7 or 8 reactions. And so here's what I arrived at for the mood tracker with Ohio State right now. Conflicted, but also confident. Because there was a lot of a conflicted nature about the mood around Ohio State from fans whose most recent memory, if you look past the Rose Bowl to the end of the regular season, was we didn't beat Michigan, we didn't go to the Big Ten championship game. And some Ohio State fans view that as just an outright travesty within the scope of college football, of course, because they look around and they see no one's come close to out-recruiting us up here. No one else has C.J. Stroud. We're so good in the quarterback room, Quinn Ewers left. Look at all the racehorses we have at receiver. Travion Henderson, as a true freshman, may be the best back in the league already. We got NFL talent all over the place, and you're telling me we didn't even play for the Big Ten championship? What gives? I get that. And then you went to Michigan and you were second best that day. I get that. So let's just bookmark that, okay? Because there's reasons to be conflicted. It's okay to feel that way. But then there's the confidence, and the confidence is Ryan Day. I mean, that's the bottom line. Confidence is Ryan Day. So there's reason to be conflicted. That's fair. I'm going to address that in a second. There is definite reason to be confident. But here's where the conflicted aspect comes back in. And I had one of my Buckeye buddies, a BB, if you will. I asked him, all right, so you sound unhappy. Do you realize how ridiculous that is? Now, this is me speaking to him. I said, do you realize how ridiculous that is? Because this dude was ready to jump off the ledge. And I said, what has you so upset? And he said, well, I mean, we have no business losing to Michigan. Okay, it's fine to feel that way. But I asked him, who's the best coach in the game right now? He said, Saban. I said, he doesn't even beat Auburn every year. He doesn't even beat Auburn every year. In other words, it's hard to win. It's really hard. Ohio State, just because they've run off this string of wins against Michigan, that doesn't mean that it's a given. It never was a given. You've always got to go into that thing and it's going to be a knife fight. That's the beauty of rivalry college football and rivalry in sports. And it's the beauty of competition. And it's not the worst thing in the world to come up short and taste your own blood a little bit as it relates to the long-term future of your program. So yeah, you lost to Michigan in a game at least Vegas told you that you were favored in. Well, what next? You know, because this has happened before. Good teams, favored teams, have lost before and have come up short. I think there was, at least according to the guy that I was speaking with, and this is probably shared sentiment-wise by a chunk of the fan base, there was a feeling that this thing was supposed to work like a storybook or even a story arc, where we got Ryan Day, we go to the national championship game, we get beat by Alabama. Okay, the preview magazine culture would lead you to believe, well, the next logical step is Ohio State, they work all offseason. They get back to the national championship game, and then they atone for that loss. This is the real world. This is not the way it works all the time. This is not a fairy tale. Sometimes you lose, you come up short, and then you don't even get a chance next year. And maybe it takes you 3 or 4 years to get back. Some teams never get back. You know, some teams never get back there. I got a good reason to believe Ohio State will get another opportunity or two at a national championship under Ryan Day, but because they didn't immediately go back, there's some aspect of being upset, and I get all that. But understand this. This is where we shift back to the confident aspect. Ryan Day's a very young head coach. You know, Ryan Day is on the grand stage at Ohio State at the same time that Nick Saban was at, like, where was he? Toledo and then Michigan State. And Urban Meyer was at Bowling Green in Utah. And the point is, you can't find shortcuts to learn the lessons that it takes to win at the highest level. You can't. It's just that in the old school, in the old days, you learn those lessons off the national stage. You didn't have to learn those. You didn't have to learn the proper way to hire a defensive staff on the biggest stage in the sport, under a white-hot spotlight with millions upon millions watching you every week. You learned it in the MAC. You learned it on a random Tuesday night. I know they didn't play Tuesday night games back then, but you get what I'm saying. Kirby Smart's had the same thing happen to him. You know, all these guys now, Lincoln Riley, all these guys who in the modern age of college football are getting their first taste of being a head coach in some of the most prestigious programs and opportunities the sport has to offer, there still is no shortcut, guys. The fact that Ryan Day hasn't fallen flat on his face and gone 8-4 up there, that alone tells you he's the real deal. And also, I want you to think back this past year. You know, I remember, where was I? I was at Iowa State, I want to say, in week 2. Yeah, Iowa State in week 2. Unair-conditioned press box. I'm in the trenches, guys. I'm taking bullets for you, and by that I mean sweating bullets for you. It's a very tough job to go cover these college football games for free, but someone's got to do it. And so I'm up there, and I'm in the press box, and I was watching Oregon, Ohio State. And Oregon, this is the same team that goes on to lose to Stanford, got smoked by Utah twice. They're physically handling Ohio State at times, and the same 3 or 4 things keep just vexing Ohio State's defense. And I remember thinking to myself, there's going to be a lot talked about this defensive performance, which there was, rightfully so. But then the next question was, boy, is this just it for Ohio State this year? And the answer was no, it wasn't. Because Ryan Day made a very calculated but very decisive decision. And I know those go hand in hand because they're the same thing, but he made moves then. Ryan Day didn't wait till the end of the year. Now, you may look back and you say, oh, he had to do that. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. A lot of guys with a lot more age about themselves would have said, well, I'm stuck with who I'm stuck with. Ryan Day didn't. He took decisive action. It's the hallmark of a leader, but also the hallmark of a guy who knows where he wants to go, and when he's got dead weight on his staff, that's not helping him get there. I would love to be more respectful, but that was just the fact of the matter. But they did what they had to do to get to the end of the year. What did he do? What did Ryan Day do as soon as he got to the end of the year? He went and got one of the best defensive minds in the game in Jim Knowles. Got him from Oklahoma State. No one could have seen that coming but him. And so, you know, he overturned the parts of the program that he has to overturn. The point is, you're watching lessons get learned on a high wire that's 100 stories off the ground instead of, 10 feet off the ground. You could fall 10 feet. It hurts, but you get up and you're okay. You can't fall when you're where Ryan Day is. But the other part of that confidence is if Ryan Day's serious when he says, I'm going to be here for a long time, there is no window to be worried about. A lot of programs out there, since I just mentioned Iowa State, a lot of people at Iowa State have been concerned. Well, we've had Brock Purdy there, we had Breeze Hall, and we had a senior veteran-laden roster, and we got Matt Campbell, and we know the history of Iowa State football. Is this a window? Yes, it probably is a window, and you better get it done to the maximum because you're probably going to have to hit a reset button before too much longer. At least that's what history would lead you to believe. At Ohio State, as long as a guy the caliber of Ryan Day is there and recruiting is operating the way it is right now, there is no window. The window is every year they have a football season, you got a shot to do some very special things. So there is no window, and that's what the buddy and I that I mentioned were talking about. He said, I'm just worried that we're a couple of years in now to a window, and if we don't get it done, and I interrupted him and I said, what? If you don't get it done, what? If you don't ever win a championship with C.J. Stroud, what? The next best quarterback's going to step up. You'll have another guy that had all 5 of those stars next to his name. And if you don't have one, you'll go get one from the transfer portal because you'll have guys who would crawl over broken glass and fight over each other to try and get there to play and wear that Buckeye helmet. Like, that's a very, very coveted position to have. You will not have to worry about a window closing. In other words, if you're Ohio State. But I'm very, very interested to watch this upcoming year because, see, there's another kind of divide in the schools of thought about how to look at what's happening in the Big Ten right now. You got Mel Tucker in Michigan State rapidly improving. No one knows what to expect now from Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, but as of last year, you were seeing the best version of that program that we've seen to date under Jim Harbaugh. Penn State has made some very, very good hires. I think Penn State easily has got the best quarterback coming on campus that they've had under James Franklin. I believe that. I remember the Hackenberg era, but I believe that. And at the same time, you got Ohio State still as the mainstay. Well, how am I supposed to look at this? If I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan, I'd be excited. Like, I think competition's a very good thing. Clemson sits over here in the ACC, and for several years, you had to worry about whether they were being battle tested enough. Some years it was yes, and some years it was no. I think they've done a very good job of navigating that personally, but it's good. It's good to know that there's someone waking up every day who's capable of beating you. In multiple places in the Big Ten, because it just brings out the best in a staff. You don't ever have to manufacture the motivation and excitement. It's there because there's a real opportunity to get beaten. So I could not feel any better, quite frankly, about the future of Ohio State. I think the fan base, especially once you get into spring practice and you just forget about last year, fan base will feel that way. Fan base should feel that way. So conflicted and confident, and I think conflicted, it'll kind of fade away like an early morning fog, and they'll just be confident because here's what's coming. What's coming is those preseason articles where they tell you how many teams would be favored over Ohio State, and it wouldn't surprise me if we arrive in preview magazine season and there's an article or two out there from an odds maker who says we would favor Ohio State against everyone, as it turns out, coming into this year. Maybe a 2-point dog against Alabama, favored against everyone else. Those articles are coming, and with it, so too is coming the confidence.